Hello YouTube, it's me Video Gamer, and this is the How to Draw Video Game Characters tutorial. And today I will be showing you how to draw Riku from Kingdom Hearts. Basically what you're going to need is a pencil with an eraser, a sketchbook or copy paper, mechanical pencil for details, permanent markers for outlines, and colored pencils if you want to color your drawing. So, without further ado, let the drawing begin. First thing in doing this, I decided to make a basic sketch of Riku's body and just his pose in general. And this sort of helps me keep everything in proportion. And from there, we're going to start off from the eyes. Pretty much, they're just triangular shapes with a circle inside of them. Not too much to them there. And his nose just pretty much comes in between those, of course. And just get rid of a few sketch lines here. And his mouth, I'm not really sure what I want that to look like yet. I'll work on that a bunch more. Just a reminder to you is whenever you start out on drawings, be drawing light sketch lines. That way, if you make a mistake, you can easily erase it. His eyebrows are right above that, and his hair is just jagged and everywhere pretty much. He doesn't really have a certain hairstyle like Sora does. So just spike it out downwards. Like his hair is flat on top, and his chin just curves around like that. His face seems to be a little bit more narrower than Sora's face. Continue drawing out the outline of the hair. The neck is kind of thin on these characters. And then his hair up on top of his head is just flat as it comes around. So that's kind of what defines him, I guess, but not as much detail on the hair as Sora's. And for the lower spikes, you can just make them however you want them to look. Add the pupil inside the eye. And right now, everything looks a little bit messy just because of all the sketch lines I have laying around. But once we get this outlined in Sharpie, I'm sure it'll clean it up a bit. Work a bit on the neck area by adding in some lines for the definitions. Now from there, we're going to just basically take our normal pencil and just build up the general outline of his body and his clothing and just the shapes that compose Riku himself. The shirt just kind of comes around on his arms a bit. And his arms are way more muscular than Sora's arms. So you need to make sure that you make them a lot thicker and add in a few different bumps to represent muscles on it. The thing about the Kingdom Hearts characters is that their hands are actually significantly larger than everything else about them. Like, their hands and feet are really large, so make sure you don't make them too small, otherwise it might look a little weird. I guess it looks weird anyway. Just draw it how you see fit, I guess. Try to make them look similar, but it's your drawing. Be creative with it. I wonder how many times I've said that altogether, ever. Wow. In his hand, I decided to have him holding a rope because they're suspended on the edge of a building fighting a bunch of Heartless. Don't ask me why I chose to do it this way. I thought it looked cool in my mind, and yeah, I guess it turned out pretty good, but you'll have to see. His other arm, I plan to have him holding his sword above his head. As you can see, I'm not quite there yet, but this is just still the sketching process, so just sketch it out. And if need be, you can erase it and adjust things to how you see fit. And his pants are kind of weird. I don't know what it is. He has these these. It'd be a lot simpler if you were looking at the picture I looked off of. Uh, okay, we'll just go with pants. He has some strange looking pants. Just draw those in. I just can't describe it any other way. Strange looking pants. Gosh. And his feet just below that. And just continue working on the details of his body by adding in some muscles, some outlines to everything. And look, there it is. There it is. I had to erase something and completely move it. That's what happens a lot of times in my drawings is I put something there at first with sketch lines and then I decide it's not good, so I move it, which is completely okay because I drew lightly. And once you start feeling confident with how Riku looks, you can start outlining everything and getting it prepped up for the final outline. Riku's sword is one of the most exotic swords I've probably ever seen. It just really has a lot of curves to it, and I just think it really looks really cool. It almost looks like some sort of bat wing, almost like some sort of really hooked, curved wing. And on the guard of the sword, it has some sort of eye on it, and it has these rectangular blocks sticking out from the sides. Very unique sword, and I actually had a lot of fun drawing that sword. And at the top of the wing, it has some sort of claw coming back down. At the end, it has a little bit of a spike to it. And then draw the fingers coming off of the wing. Jeez, that sounds so weird for a sword. Add a little bit of shine to the curves of the sword. And I decided to make it a bit thinner just by shaving it off a bit. And make sure you got a lot of curves in between the fingers of the wing / blade thing. Add a little bit of streaks marks to make it look like he's moving it pretty fast. And now we're going to work on his feet a bit more. What you basically have to do is just put on some minor details on his shoes. I guess those are kind of straps to hold down the straps that hold down his shoelaces. Yeah, I don't know how his shoes work. They just look kind of cool. So, just draw those in real quick. And on the rope, basically you don't have to do too much detail on that. Just add semicircles. Now we're going to outline the drawing with our fine point Sharpie. Pretty much the way you do this is just outline every single line carefully because you're not going to get a second chance with Sharpie. And just outline everything, and then after you do that, take your eraser and just erase all those sketch lines, and that'll give you a really nice, clean-looking drawing for coloring in. Speaking of which, I started coloring. For the pants, it's got a lot of different shades of blue. We're just going to start out with a really light coat of that first so we can have room for shading later. And the pants underneath of his over pants things is a dark blue. And his skin is just a mix of pale yellow, sort of an orangish color. If you don't have these colors, these different skin colors, probably just keep mixing and trying until you get it right. The more colors you have, the easier it is to get all these different colors. And his shirt is yellow, as well as his shoes. And his glove is just, it's actually sort of a darkish gray color, but I chose to start out with a light gray, so that way I could get in a lot more shading and details to it. Just give it a whole nother dimension. Add in a little bit of soul to it. For really dark areas on him, I decided to take my thick black Sharpie and just sort of shade on the edges a bit. Riku's hair is just a really light gray, and his eyes are blue. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a color that's darker than all the light shades that you put on there. Say for the skin color, choose a darker skin color and just color off to the left side of all the parts of Riku's body. And this is just going to give it some really nice shading. The way I sort of planned out this drawing was that the light source that's causing all the shadows to be on the left side of the drawing is just the sun somewhere in the background. And I didn't add it in yet, but I'm getting all the shading to match. And this almost sort of creates an environment for your characters and just really makes the characters pop. It's more 3D looking, I guess. It's just easier to see the effect rather than explain it, I guess. And you can already tell what it's doing. And what you're going to do is you're going to do this same basic effect for all of the parts on Riku's body, Riku's sword, just basically everything. And this will really just bring him out of the drawing and make it more realistic. On the yellow, I decided to use some sort of orangish yellow, and then for the very edge, I threw in a little bit of a brownish yellow, like almost a copper. No, not copper. That doesn't make sense. Brass color. There we go. That's the metal I was thinking of. Fail. For the pants, I decided that I wanted a lot of, I wanted it to be a lot darker than the overpants, I guess, and I did that by adding a lot of dark blues and purples, and I even colored over it a bit with a black just to really make it that much darker. And then I took a darkish blue, more like navy blue, and just colored over the pants. Yeah. And coming back up to his hands, which I said were going to be dark gray, I just used a dark gray near the shadows parts and took even a black at the very edge of it just to make it seem darker. And even though it's not one solid color, you can still tell that that's a pretty dark object. The only light part is where the light hits it, and that still maintains its color, but it gives it a lot of dimension to it. I don't know if you're understanding what I'm saying right now. I'm having trouble understanding myself as well. Yeah. And on the sword, for the shading of the sword, basically, just take a whole bunch of different reds and color off to the same way that you've been doing for the rest of the body, except for the wing. The wing is a little bit different than the rest. Around the fingers of the wing blade thing, just color in darkly and leave a few highlights, and this really makes it look nearly thinner than the rest of it. And for the claw, just put in a gray, the black, and all sorts of different colors, just to make it seem similar to the actual sword. Color in the blocks around it. Color in the rope. Don't have to color too much, but if you want it to match everything else, just do the same shading technique. And that basically sums up my drawing of Riku. Hope you guys liked it. If you want to see the how to draw a Sora character, which is already there, click the top link. And if you just want to go on and finish your drawing, click the bottom link.